Part 48. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 471. Mephisto made a feint and returned to the underground. Google search reading. Sarah Tia received an advance warning from Ruger, and before the massive thunder bombs hit, she worked together to support her defense. After Sarah turned from a demon to a god, the bonus to her attack ability was not high, but she had a lot more auxiliary defense abilities. The divine light veil on her goddess vestments slightly increased the output, and when it covered the two women, it was a set of divine shields. Although Tia Polo was essentially a demon god and could not use her own power to help Sarah increase the output, fortunately she still had the ability of telekinesis. Telekinesis was the purest spiritual interference material, without attributes, and there was no distinction between gods and demons. But for the same reason, it was also difficult for telekinesis to intervene in other types of magic. In other words, telekinesis could not help Sarah provide more energy. Tia's powerful brick-flying version was wasted. However, Tia could not provide assistance to Sarah's protective magic, but she could contribute in another direction. For example, she used telekinesis to blow away the thick thunderclouds around her, or even forcibly dismantle them and make them disappear into thin air. Especially her telekinesis power is stronger, and it is more rough and destructive when it is used. How to say it, although the name of Diablo is riding on the popularity of others, it is really correct to put it on Tia Polo. Others are neither holy nor Roman nor Empire. But Tia Polo has a dark appearance, and her abilities and skills are destructive, and she is also a demon god level existence. That name fits her very well. With one defense and one attack on Shalashia's side, and with little magic consumption, she quickly controlled the first wave of strong attacks that Mephisto had worked so hard to create. And Mephisto, who was teleported back to the underground, continued to increase the magic output while secretly opening the portal to the burning hell. He didn't just want to escape, but he found that as he and the two opposite sides forcibly absorbed the surrounding magic, the concentration of magic here was decreasing again. The speed of decrease cannot be said to be fast, but it is definitely not slow. According to his judgment, if he wanted to stop absorbing the magic power here and restore his full state, the concentration of magic power around him would be lower than before on the ground. Therefore, he opened the portal to the burning hell, which was actually more important to provide himself with another source of magic power. However, he still remembered what the little lowly Gialia said before, that if he was too deeply connected with the burning hell here, it would be very likely to pull this small world into the turbulence of time and space. So his hell portal was not open too big. To say that the demon god level is worthy of being the demon god level, the magic power it can accommodate is an astronomical figure. The fourth floor of this underground tomb was originally the lair of the Queen of Pain Andariel. Even if it is only in the sanctuary world instead of the burning hell, the magic power here is much stronger than that of ordinary areas. After the shattering of the world stone and the dispersion of the sanctuary world, the magic power has been lost. Coupled with the dissipation after entering the lost world, the magic concentration here has decreased compared to before. But the degree of decrease is only about 10% minus 20%. But even so, it is still not enough for Mephisto to absorb to the full state, which shows how gluttonous these demons are. Of course, this cannot be entirely blamed on Mephisto's gluttony. The two in Ruger's family are no different. The three are now all demon god level, which means that their demon god origins god divinity are similar. Then they must be almost gluttonous. The relationship between the origin divinity and the magic energy in the body is similar to the upper limit and current value of Ruger's health. The higher the upper limit, the higher the total amount that can be restored. Or use the chariot that Ruger is more familiar with as an analogy. The origin of the demon god is similar to the total cost of the chariot. The higher the origin, the higher the total cost. Then naturally more and better equipment can be installed on the chariot. Magic energy and the like are similar to combat supplies such as fuel, ammunition, and external armor plates on the chariot. Although the chariots are different, their structures will not be exactly the same, and the ammunition and fuel loads will not be strictly unified. But the gap will not be too big. Of course, the more expensive the tank, the more ammunition it can carry, otherwise the battlefield ammunition supply vehicle would be much more powerful than a tank. But for now, whether it is Mephisto or Tia and Sarah, it is like a third-generation main battle tank that has just been loaded with 3 or 5 main gun shells, and they are still far from their respective load limits. At this time, they will naturally be equally eating. And the ammunition to be loaded near the 4th floor of the catacombs, at most, can only be fully replenished by one of them, and the other 2 will be far behind. Mephisto foresaw this and opened the portal. With this portal, although it is small enough to accommodate only one fallen demon in and out, it still allows Mephisto to recover magic power at a higher speed. In a short period of time, it is no problem to catch up with Shalatia and the 2. If this battle continues to be fought in this way of attrition, and no other accidents occur in the middle, Mephisto will definitely be the final winner. Because Shalatia can only rely on the magic power in the surrounding environment to replenish her fuel and ammunition. Mephisto secretly built a supply line for his own use. The situation is getting worse. Well, if there is no lugger. If there is no accident, the final winner of the war of attrition will only be Mephisto, right? Ruger snorted coldly, unfortunately, I am an accident. Mephisto faked a shot in front of Ruger and returned to the underground, but Ruger was still in the giant Andariel. He finally used teleportation to send himself in, and he didn't want to jump out again. So, after casually recovering the second homemade Iron Man with only an empty shell left, he controlled the giant Andariel and followed Mephisto to jump down the hole. However, the magic shadow cloak he cast on the outside was not revoked, and he did not jump directly to the 4th floor underground, but slid down along the surface of the side wall little by little. Of course, it was on the opposite side of the area where Tia Sarah and Mephisto fought. To be precise, he was behind Mephisto. After the hateful demon opened a charging specific burning hell portal for him, Ruger really wanted to kick him into the portal. It's a pity that the portal was too small, and at most he could only throw an arm over. If they can't attack suddenly and kick Mephisto in, then Lugger can only take the initiative to join the battle. But there is a new problem here. That is, the giant Andariel has no suitable weapons. The 18-meter-tall giant is indeed big enough. Especially compared with Lugger's artillery tanks. As expected, the size of the giant is large, and the demand for the size of the weapon is also rising. Fortunately, as a mechanic and an armorer, Lugger has the least worries about choosing weapons. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 472. Ruger could not find a suitable opportunity for the time being, so he quietly stepped back a few steps, hid in the corner of the 4th floor of the underground tomb, opened the logistics space and went directly in. Target: choose a weapon for the giant Andariel. Weapon type: long-range guns and artillery. Direction: tank main gun and other artillery. Ruger is a plastic man. Although he has assembled a few 1/100 scale MG mobile suits, there are also nearly 20. Since he got those tanks in the Dark World, he has also used vending machines to buy reptile models to assemble when he is free. Reptiles are nicknames for tanks. These things with little combat power would cost thousands of UN in his original world. But in the vending machine, there are more categories than ordinary online stores, and they are still very cheap. 20 points are a lot. Well, if you use roast beef as an intermediate equivalent, it seems that the price is about the same. Then he found that compared with the mobile suits that were mainly 1/60th, 1/100, and 1/144, the 3 main scales of the reptiles were 1/35th, 1/48th, and 1/72nd. So he had never thought about putting these two things together to play. But when the giant Andariel appeared, the situation was different. To find a suitable weapon for the giant Andariel, wouldn't it be easier and faster to try it with a model first than to find a gun directly from the tank? As for how to make the two proportional, it was not too difficult. Because he had once assembled a mega-level super large-scale mobile suit with a 1/48 scale but super simple parts. Put this thing together with the 1/48 scale reptile, wouldn't it be possible to try it out? But the problem is that the 1/48 scale mobile suit is easy to assemble. With his current ability, he can throw it to the logistics space robot arm to do it, and it can be completed in a few seconds. But the 1/48 scale tank is much more complicated to assemble. The most important thing is that he doesn't really like this scale, and there are not many in stock. If he makes it now, he will waste more time than if he uses Juin to find tank guns directly. Just when he was scratching his head, he accidentally saw a special series from the vending machine. It was a chess piece model made by a certain Eastern European model factory specifically for war board games and chess. That scale is 1/100. The most important thing is that the series is a quick assembly type that does not require ABS special glue. That is, just like the mobile suit, you can assemble it by cutting out the parts. After handing it over to the mechanical arm, this thing is faster to make than the Mega Mobile suit. So it didn't take long for Lugger to take a set of 100 scale reptiles from the zoo and compare them with his favorite MG Jim Riot type. The Jim Riot type, with a total height of 18 meters, is basically the same as Juin. The famous Mark Rabbit was developed from this. Lugger likes this thing purely because its color scheme is very similar to a bunch of gray reptiles from the zoo. Soon, he quickly found a weapon for his Juin from the comparison between the two. The first, second, third, and other small guns below 50 mm were skipped directly, and the Panzer IV-D was first looked at. The 24 caliber 75 mm KWK-37 tank gun was like a small pistol in the hands of the riot control type. It was a small caliber small pistol, such as the 7 mm caliber pistol of the 5.7. Changing to the 43 caliber 75 gun of the Panzer IV F2/G, or even the 48 caliber 75 gun of the Panzer IV-H, it was equivalent to a small caliber submachine gun. It felt like Ruger was holding a HK-MP5 two-handed submachine gun, but the bullet used, or the barrel on the gun, was the 6 mm version of the MP7. In short, it was small and thin. With the three-gun Panzer IV as a basic comparison, Ruger had a basic concept in his mind. If the 48 caliber 75 mm gun looks like a submachine gun, then the 88 mm gun with a similar caliber will be the same. So the next test for Ruger was the 71 caliber 88 mm gun of the Tiger King heavy tank. Don't say it, this time I have a little feeling. Although the caliber is still small, it is at least more like a rifle. Well, a small caliber rifle. A little bigger, try the self-propelled mortars of the Grizzly and Sturm Tiger. Well, after trying it, Ruger felt that it was very similar to the short-barreled spray gun in Tia's hand, that is, the sawed-off shotgun. This thing is not good as a main weapon, but it is not bad as a secondary weapon. Arrangement. After the Tiger King, Ruger has room to try. There is only the 55 caliber 128 mm gun of the Jaguar tank destroyer and the Maus super heavy tank. Lugger didn't have the Maus super heavy tank. Here we are talking about the real World War II mechanical version, not the model, but he actually had two Jaguar tank destroyers. Chassis. So he didn't have this gun. However, this caliber and this caliber are similar to the 55 caliber 120 mm Rheinmetall tank smoothbore gun of the Leopard 2A6. So the comparison result can still be used. After drawing twice with the model pen, Lugger nodded silently in his heart. He thought, the main weapon is now available. The feeling of holding the 128mm gun removed from the Maus super heavy tank with the GM riot suppression is similar to Luger holding a Barrett M82A1 himself. Think about it, the 18-meter giant Andariel holding a 55 caliber tank gun with a 128mm caliber and a barrel length of about 7 meters is about the same as an 8-meter ordinary person holding a 7mm caliber Barrett with a barrel length of about 737mm. It's really proportional. Now, Ruger is more confident. He just provided the automatic rifle improved based on the Barrett semi-automatic sniper rifle to the ROGs. Now he can completely scale up his large-bore automatic rifle design by 10 times, and then make it compatible with the breech block mechanism of the 128mm cannon or the 120mm smoothbore gun. Then use the automatic error correction function of the logistics space to force this unprecedented design to be put into actual combat without testing and improvement. Finally, ding 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 ding, his giant Andariel has a large-bore automatic machine gun with a power comparable to the most advanced tank main gun in the first 2 decades of the 21st century. Without using the error correction feature of the logistics space, although Ruger can enlarge the gun into a cannon by himself, it is unknown how long it will take. Think about it, if the caliber is increased 10-fold, the area will increase 100-fold, and the volume will increase 1,000-fold. In other words, if the material structure is the same, the Barrett used by the 18-meter giant is 1,000 times the weight of the 14-kilogram version of the ordinary Barrett used by the original 8-meter normal person. That is 14 tons. There are similar examples, such as the current body of the giant Andariel, which weighs more than 100 tons. Ruger himself weighs less than 200 kilograms, of course. As his body muscles increase, he should be fast now. 1,000 times is 200 tons. The giant Andariel is still slimmer than him. It is easy to understand that the Mecha warriors weigh 50 to 60 tons for the same 18-meter big guys. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 473. It is easy to understand that mecha warriors weigh 50 or 60 tons. They just magnify human data and undergo certain adjustments. Google search Furtkin. For example, some special titanium alloy with lower density is used as armor, or even skeleton, to reduce weight. The enlarged Barrett weighs 14 tons, which is logical. The 55 caliber tank gun of the Leopard 2A6 is actually not that heavy. The weight is only a fraction of it, about 4 tons. But you have to know that a tank gun is at most equivalent to the barrel and chamber of a firearm. There is no handguard, no grip, no upper and lower receivers, no buttstock, no optical sights, etc. If all these are added, and the same material is used, this giant gun may really weigh 14 tons. There is also an implicit condition here, that is, the strength of the giant Andariel must be at least 1,000 times that of Ruger. Otherwise, she can't lift this weapon. Fortunately, she came for the body of the Demon King. Although the demon rank is not as high as Sarah Andariel, and most of the Demon King's essence was absorbed by Sarah, the remaining part, coupled with the blessing of the Queen of Pain's throne and Luger's material energy armor, that is, the Iron Man armor, is still powerful. It's just 1,000 times the strength of Luger. Simple. Well, it's not that simple. Originally, after absorbing magic power, Toxic Andariel could still cast many powerful magics. But the giant version of Andariel's body in Luger's hand absorbed so much magic power, the total amount would only be more than Toxic Andariel, not less than her, but most of these magic powers could only be used for the normal operation of the body in the end. Juin is not completely without the ability to cast spells, she can still cast auxiliary skills such as the Shadow Cloak. But if you want to fight directly with magic like Mephisto, forget it. This is the disadvantage of insufficient Demon King's essence. This part was transformed by Lugger using the strange creature enhancement technology, and a lot of auxiliary magic engines that consume magic power to do work were added to Juin's body. Otherwise, Juin's magic power consumption will be even more terrifying, and the time he can really move will be even more limited. Once the magic power in his body is exhausted, Juin will be like an electric car without power, and can only operate again after charging. If he hadn't been forced to that point, Ruger really wanted to install a nuclear fission engine for her. Ruger did not have a purely mechanical nuclear fission engine, and he had not yet discovered the Minovsky particle. Although from many signs, if the magic power of the dark world is in the form of particles, the various characteristics are really similar to the legendary Minovsky particles. For example, radio interference, radio interference, radio interference, and so on. Well, in fact, there is only this point of similarity, and the difference in other places is quite large. In short, Ruger did not have a purely mechanical nuclear fission engine. However, he has a biochemical version. It is to use the strange biochemical transformation of organs and tissues to absorb nuclear fission materials, and use the energy released by the fission reaction as energy to do work. It is the set that was obtained from the Cyber Dragon in the Strange Dungeon. This thing has the potential to be directly used on the giant Andariel after some modification. But now, Ruger has not been forced into a corner and has not used it yet. After designing the weapon for the giant Andariel, Ruger spent the fastest time and money to buy various special alloys to reduce the weight of this gun while meeting all physical indicators. In addition, there are automatic reloading mechanisms and magazine-type ammunition feeding mechanisms, etc. Finally, a 120mm caliber giant smoothbore gun that can seamlessly match various tank shells used by Leopard 2A6 was born. Its ammunition power and other properties are almost the same as those of tank guns, but because it uses magazines for ammunition feeding, the continuous shooting speed is much faster. Of course, in order to pursue a high rate of fire, the hydraulic recoil assist device must be improved to make it run faster. Relatively speaking, the perceptible recoil of this thing is much greater than that of a tank gun. Fortunately, with the ability of the giant Andariel, it can still be easily controlled. After finishing these, Ruger couldn't help but sigh. No wonder the ammunition of the 105mm and 120mm machine guns used by Zaku's looks short and thick, giving people the feeling that it is similar to 40mm high-speed grenades. Compared with tank shells, that kind of ammunition either uses explosives with energy density dozens of times that of ordinary propellants, or is simply reduced. The former possibility brings too many bugs and is almost impossible, so it can only be the latter. But this kind of 120mm ammunition with reduced charge can easily slaughter the main battle tanks of that world. Even the Leopard 2A smoothbore gun may not be able to do this. What does it mean? It means that the tank technology in the Zaku world is definitely at least one generation behind the third generation main battle tank technology in Ruger's hands. It is probably the level of the early Cold War, or even the middle and late World War II. If it weren't for the foundation of Andariel's body, Ruger would never have thought of using pure machinery to create a humanoid combat weapon. It is possible to use the weird biochemical transformation technology to create a behemoth equipped with only weapons such as artillery. But it won't be a Tyrannosaurus or Tyrannosaurus, it's more likely to be a Triceratops. But now, all of this is unnecessary. After the new gun was made and the test firing was successful, Lugger came out of the logistics space and returned to the fourth floor of the catacombs. Back behind Mephisto. At this time, the situation on the field has entered a stalemate stage as expected. After all, as long as the stalemate continues, Mephisto has a greater chance of winning, and it is very likely. And now Mephisto is the offensive side on the field, Sarah is pure defense, and Tia switches back and forth between offensive defense and defensive counterattack. Although it is roughly a back and forth, it is obvious that the tactical initiative is in the hands of the pure offensive Mephisto. The initiative is in his hands. He can attack when he wants to attack and stop when he wants to stop. Of course, he will choose the most advantageous way for himself. The most advantageous way for him is to continue the stalemate. What? Why is he not afraid of Ruger and others coming to disrupt the situation? Hasn't he recognized Ruger's ability? How to say it, he recognizes Ruger's ability to quibble and fool people. However, the pie he drew for Ruger's recruitment is Belial's position. In other words, in his heart, Ruger is just a king of lies who plays with his mouth. It's okay to be a conspirator, spy, or military strategist, but in a head-on battle. In short, Mephisto recognized Ruger's mouth cannon, but didn't think highly of his combat power. Alas, this is such a sad story. At first glance, it seems that Ruger is not recognized by others, which is really tragic. But if you look closely, a dignified three-giant demon dared to look down on Ruger, which is really a tragedy among tragedies. Yes, his absolute strength is definitely not as good as those demons like Tia or Sarah. But if we really talk about actual combat power, the attack method that Mephisto is using now to suppress Sarah Tia with one force, Ruger has also used it before. When dealing with the poisonous Andariel. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 474. At that time, Ruger used various artillery arrays to bombard toxic Andariel, forcing her to defend. The battlefield situation at that time was exactly the same as it is now. However, there is one thing that Ruger is indeed inferior to, that is, his firepower density is definitely not weaker than Mephisto, but the firepower intensity per unit area is much worse. Otherwise, Tyasara would not have kept the shield open, but did not take the opportunity to use a big move to turn the situation around. When Ruger attacked Toxic Andariel, she used an integrated attack and defense shield plus a beam cannon to counterattack. However, the gap between Ruger and Mephisto is not about personal ability, but whether Ruger is willing to spend money. If he is willing to spend money, the artillery of those artillery arrays will be upgraded to the level of 120 mm caliber 55 times the caliber Rheinmetall tank gun. Even Toxic Andariel will not be able to do any defensive counterattack. The only thing that these demons and devils are fortunate for is that Ruger does not have that much money. So he will not use artillery arrays anymore. But he is not absolutely poor, so he has such a cannon in his hand now. A rifle-type tank cannon for the giant mecha warrior like Andariel's body. Standing dozens of meters behind Mephisto, Ruger sat on the throne of pain in Juan's chest, and his consciousness merged with Juan's consciousness. Soon, he seemed to have a huge body of his own. Andariel's complete body. Holding the rifle-type tank cannon in his hand, recalling the test-firing memory in the logistics space shooting range before, he slowly aimed the muzzle forward, but did not directly catch Mephisto. These guys at the demon god level, if you take the initiative to search for him and attack him, they will sense it. If Ruger takes the initiative to aim at Mephisto at this time, although Juan still has the effect of the magic shadow cloak on him, Mephisto over there will still immediately sense his presence. But this self-protection sensing also has a flaw, that is, if the other party does not actively show hostility, it is difficult to sense it. This is very similar to the airborne warning radar of a fighter. As we all know, once a fighter is locked by an enemy fire control radar, the warning radar will detect the electromagnetic waves irradiated by the enemy radar and warn the pilot. Whether it is the radar of a land-based anti-aircraft missile, the enemy fighter's search radar, or simply the radar on an active or semi-active guided anti-aircraft missile. As long as their detection wave signal sweeps the fighter warning radar will respond. However, if the missile coming is a passive guidance type. For example, there is no radar that actively emits electromagnetic waves, but an infrared guidance radar that senses the temperature of the fighter's engine tail flame. If it is locked and followed by such a missile, the warning radar will not respond. Of course, as the devil is 1 foot high, the road will be forced to be 10 feet higher. Infrared guided missiles are not afraid of warning radars, right? Then develop infrared warning devices. These two infrareds have the same meaning, both of which are infrared rays radiated by the high temperature of the engine tail flame. But it is not a strict targeted relationship. Infrared guided missiles detect enemy infrared rays and track them. The infrared warning device detects infrared signals in a certain area around. If it finds an enemy infrared guided missile or something, it will warn the driver. It is not a one-on-one targeting, but there is mutual technical reference, and the ecological niche is hostile. If Ruger takes the initiative to aim at Mephisto, his hostility will be sensed by Mephisto. This is similar to the function of recording warning radar. If he approaches Mephisto, even if he has the effect of the magic cloak, Mephisto will sense it. This perception is similar to the function of the infrared warning device. It can even be said that the skill of the magic cloak has functions such as infrared invisibility in addition to optical invisibility. It is precisely because of the magic cloak effect on Ruger 1 that he can get close to Mephisto at a distance of dozens of meters without being discovered by that guy. It feels like a stealth fighter. But once he launches an attack, these effects will disappear immediately. And when Mephisto also actively locks him, it is useless for him to use the magic cloak again. So Ruger is now trying to use an attack that can bypass the two types of warning methods. Barrage. Anti-aircraft artillery barrage for fighters. This kind of thing is not an attack that can be detected and prepared in advance by airborne warning radars or infrared warning devices. Then we have to ask again, fighters cannot rely on those devices to detect anti-aircraft barrage in advance, but there are barrages in an airspace, so pilots have known it long ago and it is impossible to rush in again. This is true under normal circumstances. But, what if? What if a fighter flew across the sky to perform a mission, flying at a low altitude of about 1,000 meters? And it happened that an anti-aircraft artillery battalion was stationed on the ground in this airspace today. It happened that they were going to conduct their first live fire shooting training today. It happened that when the firepower was fired, the unlucky fighter flew over the airspace that was fired. He didn't turn on the conventional radar, so he didn't know that there was an anti-aircraft battalion on the ground. As a result, he ran headfirst into someone else's bullet screen, and all the warning devices were useless, and he was shot into a sieve. Yes, the probability of such a thing is too low, and the requirements are too many, it is impossible for it to actually happen. However, Ruger used various means to simulate this kind of logic that is theoretically feasible but impossible to happen in reality due to too many conditions. His simulation method is not complicated to say, in fact, it is the same as artillery attack. The long-range over-the-horizon artillery did not open fire directly after seeing the enemy. They just received the various elements of the artillery target position transmitted by the enemy reconnaissance unit and used these data to correct the muzzle. For them, the target they aimed at was not the enemy or the enemy's tank, but that piece of ground. A piece of land similar to 36 degrees north latitude and 108 degrees east longitude. Ruger was the same. His target was the piece of air in front of him. It's just that it's easy for something else to appear in the air he was aiming at. For example, Mephisto's chest. As for Ruger, he just pulled the trigger when the guy accidentally entered this area while moving back and forth. Isn't this equivalent to Mephisto's clumsy plane accidentally crashing into someone else's acting barrage? In this way, Mephisto's alarm will not be triggered. Luger's method is still the lesson he learned from the 2-on-1 three-person battle. If you want to sneak attack Sarah, a Demon King level existence, you have to rely on this unconventional method. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 475. If this method is not used, every time Ruger sets a trap, Sarah will notice it in advance. Google search reading. Don't say that she was tricked, it was just like a wild fruit picked by the roadside, and people could eat it at will. The taste is miserable. Now, it's time for Ruger's enemies to taste this miserable taste. Soon, after another thunder bomb impact, Mephisto jumped slightly to the back to avoid it because of Tia's mind-activated sabotage. At the same time, he accumulated energy for the next wave of magic bombing. However, in the process, he entered the airspace that Ruger locked on. The moment his body entered Ruger's sight, Mephisto sensed the hostility over there and subconsciously shrank back. However, it was too late. Ruger not only pulled the trigger of the rifle-type tank gun, but also because he had predicted Mephisto's movement trajectory long ago, the muzzle was actually deliberately made slightly biased towards the direction he came from. That is to say, if Ruger aimed at the 0,0 point of the coordinate system, the actual shell would hit the 1,0 point on the right side of the target. Because Mephisto came from the right side, he would retreat to the right side without feeling it. As a result, he was hit in the chest by Ruger's shell. For this shot, Ruger dismantled the main gun of his Leopard 2A6 and made a rifle for the giant Andariel to use. Of course, he would not be stingy with this shell. The main structure of this shell is still the most stable and Ruger's favorite tail-stabilized armor-piercing shell. It's just that Ruger has changed a lot of things about the tungsten alloy rod. First of all, the material is no longer tungsten alloy, but uranium. Yes, it is the uranium of the depleted uranium shell that competes with tungsten alloy in the field of high-penetration armor-piercing shells. The core of the armor-piercing shell needs a material with high hardness, high density, high temperature resistance and corrosion resistance. So after choosing, tungsten alloy and depleted uranium became the two best choices. There is a saying that, with the technology on the timeline of Ruger's main plane, the speed of armor-piercing bullets is in the optimal range of depleted uranium cores, so depleted uranium is slightly better in armor-piercing ability for the time being. If the development continues, the bullet speed will be even 20% faster, and the tungsten core will surpass it. However, these have little impact on Ruger. Because he uses armor-piercing bullets to attack Mephisto, he needs not only the attribute of penetration depth, but also the after effect. The reason for using tail-stabilized discarding sabot armor-piercing bullets is that this kind of bullet can 100% penetrate Mephisto's bone body protected by only a few magic shields. Other bullets will either be blocked by magic shields, such as armor-breaking bullets, or they will not penetrate the guy's bone armor, such as armor-piercing bullets. Needle threading will definitely penetrate. And the penetration performance is surplus. In this way, Ruger can add something else to the piercing rod to cause other types of damage. Uranium alloy is used as the core, that's what it means. Yes, he uses uranium, not just depleted uranium. As we all know, natural uranium has three isotopes, uranium-234, uranium-235 and uranium-238. They account for 0.05%, 7.2%, and 2.75% respectively. Among them, uranium-235 is the main raw material for chain fission reaction. Therefore, whether in early nuclear reactors, military power reactors or even uranium used in nuclear weapons, the uranium used has been purified to increase the abundance of uranium-235. Then, taking natural uranium as the boundary, uranium with a high proportion of uranium-235 is considered purified uranium, enriched uranium, and enriched uranium. Uranium-235 has a lower proportion and uranium-238 has a higher proportion, which is considered depleted uranium. But, looking at the proportion, uranium-238 has a natural proportion of 2.75%. Just purify uranium-235 slightly to 1% or even 2%, and uranium-238 will be reduced to 97%. so will the physical properties of this piece of uranium material change dramatically. After all, they are just isotopic relationships, not different metal elements put together to form an alloy. Therefore, the same element only changes in isotope content, and its physical properties will not change significantly. Ruger uses this kind of material, which is slightly higher than the 235 abundance of natural uranium, but has no significant difference in comprehensive performance from depleted uranium. But strictly speaking, he uses neither natural uranium nor enriched uranium nor depleted uranium, but spent fuel. It is a spent fuel material that has reduced the amount of material that can participate in effective fission after fission reaction and increase the content of various radioactive wastes. It is stronger than nuclear waste. A part of it can continue to burn after purification, and the rest is pure nuclear waste. Needless to say, the source of this thing is contributed by the nuclear reactor of Cyber Dragon. Using it to make armor-piercing bullets can take into account two things. First, the penetration depth of armor-piercing bullet cores made of this material will not decrease too significantly. Second, its radioactivity is higher and its corresponding toxicity is stronger. If I must say, there is a third advantage, which is that it also has the characteristics of uranium, so it also has the effect of depleted uranium being easy to burn and melting armor at high speed, and it is even better to a certain extent. After all, it is made of spent fuel from nuclear reactors, and there will be some weak nuclear reactions in itself, which will continue to generate heat. That's right, Luger wanted to use this armor-piercing bullet similar to a dirty bomb to destroy Mephisto's bone body. The effect is quite good. After being shot into the soul by Luger with this thing, Mephisto was surprised, but at first he just tried to expel the bullet core from his body, while pretending to be calm and mocking Luger. Haha, after holding it in for so long and sneaking up behind me, can you only issue such a weak attack? However, while speaking, he repeatedly wanted to expel the bullet core, but every time he exerted force on his body and touched the bullet core, his strength disappeared instantly. It was as if he was cursed with weakness and aging as soon as he came into contact with that thing. You actually poisoned me. Mephisto raised his head and looked at Luger in shock. However, he discovered that Luger was not carrying a cannon by himself, but a giant carrying a gun-like cannon. An Andariel. Mephisto was shocked, and his attack on Tia's Hala also weakened a lot. The two women under the protective cover of the divine light gauze over there also saw the giant Andariel on Luger's side. However, Sarah couldn't help but her cheeks turned red. I didn't feel it when I used that body before, but now I feel so ashamed watching Luger play with it. As for how to shame Andariel's body, you can find pictures by yourself. Hey, pervert, you can just use Sarah's original body, don't you know how to put some more clothes on her? Tia shouted angrily. Her original bikini won't even let her get close to the swimming pool, right? Typical attire only found in special clubs, not at all immodest. The more Sarah listened next to her, the more she felt something was wrong. Hey, are you scolding him or me? Why do you feel like you are envious of someone's good figure and how they look good no matter what they wear? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 476. Envy you. When Tia heard this, she looked at Sarah, and then looked back at her secondary sexual characteristics, which were covered with thick scales due to her transformation into a red dragon. She became even more angry and ashamed. Feeling quite annoyed and angry. Searched Can on Google. Brother Lu. I don't care. Hurry up and put some armor on that thing. Especially the breastplate. The bigger, the better, and the thicker, the better. Lugger actually noticed before that Andariel's body style was too, well, slonnish. He also wanted to get her some armor. However, after wearing armor, auxiliary magic such as Shadow Cloak will be less effective. So he took them off again. Now when he heard what Taya said, he looked down and saw the shining, majestic and thick. Also wearing Persian and Indian style gold chain jewelry. If he hadn't been extremely satisfied in some aspects recently, and even a little overtired, he wouldn't be so angry. Otherwise, it is really possible to spray out 2 traces of blood. It's just that this tank uses composite armor like armor, so it can't be omitted. 2 or 3 times, composite armor was summoned from the logistics space to put on the giant Andariel. The Pain Lord was instantly transformed from slonnish to Tau. Well, no, they are slimmer than the Terran Marines in Star Wars, but thicker than the Fire Warriors of Warhammer Tau, and probably closer to the Spartans in Halo. I'm just talking about posture, not strength. The 3 of them were having friendly negotiations here, while Mephisto's face became increasingly ugly over there. He had always had a rib-like face, but now it was more like he had been stewed in carrot soup. This is a provocation to hell. Mephisto pointed at Ruger's giant Andariel and cursed, you actually used the remains of a demon god to make weapons. You are the public enemy of hell. What remains? Where did they come from? Don't taint someone's innocence out of thin air. Tia immediately turned her gun after hearing this, pointed at the giant Andariel and then at Sarah and said, did you see that? The real owner is here, the real master is still alive. That thing is, at most, just a piece of clothing that she didn't want to change out of. It's just a piece of clothing. Others take it and change it for yourself. Is there a problem? Still blasphemous and provocative. Hey, brother, have you forgotten what form you are in now? The flesh and blood you have now are from Austin, right? You directly took over someone else's body and transformed it into this deformed, aesthetically pleasing skeleton. How dare you blame others? Tia's words hit the mark, making Mephisto's face look even uglier. After the Lugner version put on the armor, he immediately raised the rifle version of the tank gun and pointed it at Mephisto again. Brother, let's start the one-on-one duel now, shall we? Let's let our strength speak for itself. How? Hearing this, Mephisto's eyes flashed with will-o'-the-wisps, and he said angrily, you guy, not only attack sneakily, but you also poison the weapon. Now you want to be one-on-one with me again. Haha, do you think I have no trump card? Okay, let me show you the true power of the demon god. As he spoke, Mephisto's body swelled. It didn't take long before it swelled to a height of about 16 or 17 meters, which was similar to the giant Andariel. It's just that his body structure is not like a humanoid, but rather a combination of RX-110 Capsuli, RX-139 Hammurabi, and RX-160 Biolan. The painting style is weird and terrifying. However, seeing Mephisto become about the same size as his own car, Lugger was on guard and also a little confused. After all, Mephisto is a long-range attacker who is good at magic. As long as he can release enough magic, there is no requirement for his size, right? On the contrary, it is more reasonable to shrink into a small ball, hide behind the battlefield, and shoot black guns and magic from the dark side. What is his purpose now in pursuit of becoming a giant, at the expense of others? Is it possible that you still want to fight with yourself in close combat? Well, thinking of this, Luge nodded silently. My heart says it's not impossible. If he thought he was driving a machine modified from the remains of Andariel, he might really use close combat against him. How did he know that his consciousness could be integrated with the simple consciousness in Andariel's body? Using this body is not much different from using his own body. Well, if Mephisto is really crazy and makes such a mistake, Lugger will just give him a bit of a hard blow in close combat. Yes, Lugger's melee physical skills are not as strong as those of Tyasera, but he also learned assassin physical skills from Taya. Although he doesn't know how to do things like the dragon wagging its tail and the flying dragon flying in the sky, he still knows how to fight the martial arts boxing and even the Zingi Iquan Bagwazang and so on. No matter what happens, just chop him with a knife. The dagger used by an 18-meter giant must be 6 meters long, right? The side skirt armor of the Grizzly late model was removed and polished, and it was just in use. He was secretly on guard when he heard a jingle from Mephisto. Lugger hurriedly looked over, but it was the dirty bomb and armor-piercing bomb he had hit in Mephisto's chest. Because of the expansion of the guy's size, it fell out of the huge hole. I see. Only then did Lugger understand that the main purpose of the opposite side's enlargement was actually here. But it was too late for him to react. Mephisto had already launched several enlarged versions of lightning spears at him. At the same time, the half-skeleton dragon-like guy also hid behind the lightning spear formation and rushed towards Lugger. Seeing this, Lugger didn't care to continue firing, and hurriedly used physical skills to avoid those lightning spears that were each thicker than his own body. But while he was avoiding in a panic, his peripheral vision was still fixed on Mephisto. At the same time, he was distracted by three things: waiting for the 7-meter sword on the production line in the logistics space to be ready. Seeing Mephisto getting closer and closer, Lugger also heard the wonderful thumping sound in the space. Then I saw the giant Andariel turn around on the spot, dodge the last lightning spear, and at the same time squat down, then bounce up diagonally upward. On the originally empty left hand, a short knife with a blade length of 7 meters, a width of more than 1 meter, and a handle of 2 or 3 meters suddenly appeared. Then it bounced up, driven by Geng's entire body, like a threaded edge blade. Slashing towards Mephisto who was approaching. Clang, plop. The huge body of Mephisto was cut in half by his tiny 7-meter short sword. Then, the two body parts fell to the ground one after another like sandbags. Win? Win, Taya was the first to shout. Wow, Brother Lu, you are so strong. You actually killed Mephisto. Now, you can really compete for the King of Hell. No, this is a deception, Sarah shouted hurriedly, be careful. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 477. Before Sarah could finish her words, there was a bang, and a bunch of huge special steel balls sprayed forward from Lugger's hand. What fired them was not the original 10-meter-long rifle-type tank gun on Ruger's right hand. Instead, the barrel is short and thick, only 1 or 2 meters in length at most, but the muzzle feels almost half a meter long, something that looks like a small pistol or a shotgun. That is the main gun of the Assault Tiger, a 380mm caliber 4X mortar. This stubby gun body fires shrapnel with increased charge. Although the range is not large, the short-range attack range is extremely high. After the shotgun shells in the short barrel are blasted out by the powerful detonation wave, they fly over a distance of 2 to 3 meters and spread to a considerable area. Generally speaking, it is almost half the size of the giant Andariel. The projectiles in this short, thick, shrapnel are all the size of lead balls. Under the explosive energy of tens of kilograms of TNT, the kinetic energy carried by each shot is extremely terrifying. Even if it hits Ruger's homemade Iron Man armor, 1 or 2 may not be able to break through the defense, but if 5 or 10 hits, even the armor will be deformed. Without the shock-absorbing effect of the lining, the kinetic energy transmitted when it hits the shell would be enough to make it look good. So, under the attack of these numerous, dense, and powerful projectiles, a muffled groan was heard in the air. Looking again, a smaller version of Mephisto was clutching his stomach and running away from the air in embarrassment. This guy, as Sarah said, used the big version of himself as a cover-up. After shrinking his real body, he took advantage of the chaos to attack Lugger. But he didn't expect that Lugger didn't play according to common sense at all, and used the shrapnel from the giant version of the short-barreled shotgun with his backhand to knock the real him away. Good boy. You can stop this. Okay, great, Mephisto yelled angrily in mid-air. At the same time, intense lightning flashed around it again. It seems that this extra-large lightning nova magic is brewing. Come on, I don't believe it anymore. Give me a blow. Stab. The spherical lightning nova instantly erupted with a strong magical current, blasting the entire fourth floor of the underground tomb like it was directly under the sun at noon on the summer solstice. Not to mention the ground, the entire small world has never been so bright on any day in 50 years. Seeing such an explosive lightning magic energy erupting, Tyasala hurriedly ran over to Tiluj to block it. Luj himself couldn't hold on, so he ran 2 steps back quickly, and dived in before the lightning nova could hit him. Behind Sarah's divine light gauze shield. Then, the edge of the lightning array finally reached the outer layer of Sarah's shield. Sarah made every effort to prepare for this huge magical impact, but 1 second, 2 seconds. A few seconds passed, but nothing happened. There are no arcs shooting randomly, no magic energy bursting out, and no protective shields that cannot hold up. The huge lightning nova magic disappeared completely as if it had never appeared before. What's going on? Sarah was still in a daze, but Ruger sighed. Stop looking for that Mephisto guy, he's gone. As he spoke, Lugger pointed to the portal leading to the burning hell that could only accommodate a monster the size of a sinking demon. At this time, the portal had shrunk to only accommodate one of Lugger's fists. And opposite the portal, it seems that the bone spur on the tip of Mephisto's tail can still be faintly seen. He made such a big fight, actually, to escape. Sarah was even more confused. Why? Of course I was scared away by Brother Lutiabura waved his hand, but ran to Luja's side in 3 steps and then climbed up lightly on the giant Andariel's body. Study it inch by inch. What are you doing? Don't touch. The one who spoke was Sarah, whose face turned red again. What? Isn't it? Can you still feel the feeling of this body now? Tia looked at Sarah in confusion, but then she flicked hard on a sensitive area of the giant Andariel. It's hard to say whether Sarah feels it or not, but if you poke me in the armpit again, I'm going to beat you up, Ruger said angrily. I can feel it clearly here. It hurts, okay. Hey, I'm sorry, Tia smiled, but immediately turned over and hooked the giant Andariel's neck with her big tail. The entire red dragon man lay on Juan's chest like a gecko, facing Luan inside. He said. What does it feel like inside, Sarah? Is it comfortable? Can you let me try it? Little Silong. What are you going to do? Get down here. Sarah put her hands on her hips and pointed angrily at Tia, who was in an unsightly posture, and cursed, throw away those dirty thoughts of yours, do you hear me? Generally speaking, the 3 of them did not feel nervous at all as the war just ended, and everything seemed as relaxed as usual. Until, it looks like he really ran away. He was given such a good opportunity to attack, but he didn't come out to seize it. Tia curled her lips and jumped off the giant Andariel. Are you just trying to lure Mephisto into action? Sarah was surprised, with a rather embarrassed look on her face. Huh, what else? Tia snorted coldly, clapped her hands and said, do you think everyone cares about your 2 big watermelons? They are such a burden and it is not convenient at all to move around. Really? Why does this sound so sour? After all, it's not just envy. Sarah also changed her previous embarrassment and counterattacked coldly. Am I envious? Am I jealous? Haha, you have it, don't I? A certain red dragon man patted his chest, but under the protection of the thick dragon scales and dragon skin, he didn't react at all. Okay, Don't argue. In fact, you are all quite powerful. Luodu hurriedly tried to stop the fight. Shut up, X2. The two women yelled at him at the same time. This farce seems unlikely to end anytime soon. However, there is always a possibility of eventuality. The fight was still going on here, and Anya's voice of surprise and even fear suddenly came from the ground. Brother Lu, Taya, and sister Sarah. Come on, come out and see. That dense army, what are they? What? Lu Ji was stunned when he heard this, and then he remembered Mu Yang from before, and Li Min who had led her to Luodu town. He climbed on the ground and replied, well, maybe it's the mysterious support army brought by Mu Yang. Don't worry. Before he finished saying don't worry, Luodu had already climbed to the ground and saw the dense army that Anya said. One thing Ruger was right about was that the clouds on the ground that were swarming towards the east were indeed a mysterious army headed by a few Tejaman warriors. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 478. The various metal weapons on those charming bodies shone brightly in the sunlight. But in addition to the mysterious army on the ground, there is another dense army in the sky. They are the so-called sunshine. Yes, this area has been covered by clouds for 50 years, and there is no direct sunlight at all. Naturally, there has never been anything shining in the sun. The light that shines on Guimei comes entirely from the densely packed, shining army of angels in the sky. Wow, so many birdmen, Taya said as she climbed up behind Luodu. It's the Angel Legion, the world-destroying Angel Legion led by the 12 Seraphim of the Supreme Heaven. Sarah, who came up from the end, said solemnly. I'm afraid at least 3 Seraph Legions will come over. Oh, that's right, Lugger nodded. It seems that the reason why Mephisto ran so easily is here. Please don't worry about yourself. Listening to him talking was still so relaxed and comfortable. Sarah was a little anxious and said. These guys from the Supreme Sky actually dispatched 3 legions of Seraphs. They are simply determined to destroy the world. They're going to destroy the world. We, the 3 of us, may not be afraid, but everyone else in this world will definitely die. At the end of the sentence, Sarah even turned red-eyed. Obviously there are many extremely important people in this world to her. Why are you so anxious? You are really stupid. Taya curled her lips. Look at Brother Lu, he doesn't look anxious at all. Do you think he doesn't care? That's not true. Let me tell you, every time he looks like this, it means that he has already thought of a countermeasure, and there is no need to worry at all. Yes, really, Sarah looked at Ruger doubtfully. Luodu subconsciously touched his nose after hearing this, and even the entire giant Andariel stretched out his big paws to rub the face that was 80% similar to Sarah's. Feeling the pain on his face from the claws, he stopped and chuckled. Well, since Taya has exposed everything, let's stop pretending. Bring it on. Lugger roared, but no one around him felt any difference. They looked at me and I looked at you, and they all saw the confusion in each other's eyes. In the end, they could only turn their heads and look at Luodu. The eyes of each pair were full of questions and what's coming. However, the girls are not mortals, and soon someone was the first to react. Look, the stars in the sky just now, the angels in the sky are gone now. After hearing this, everyone hurriedly looked over, and sure enough, all the birds with shining wings in the sky were gone. However, the dark clouds that originally covered the sky did not come back at this time. And where the Angel Legion originally stood, there was already a shining sun hanging on it. It was precisely because the new sun replaced the light of the angels that there was no change in light and dark around them. Even the ghosts who came over were still illuminated by the sunlight, so everyone felt that nothing had changed or happened before. What's going on? Everyone looked at Luodu again. Yeah, what's going on? Luodu smiled, but had no intention of explaining. Until, the little lowly Kalia, who had escaped far away over there, jumped up and down with her short legs and rushed towards Lugger. As she rushed, she shouted loudly, You guy, what have you done? Why can't I contact my father? What have you done to the world? Tell me, did you gain control of this world, so you put it away and took it somewhere else? You really have a space-time hub singularity gem in your hand. The little lowly's precise question made everyone around them suddenly realize. Among everyone now, excluding Lugger's family of 3, well, counting Anya's family of 4, there are also the Scorpio witch Irina and the Aquarius witch Isandra. The rest of Rog, including Rog's personal guards, were all arranged back to Rog's military camp due to several previous changes. It can be said that everyone who stays here has some understanding of the nature of this world. Although this was the first time they had heard about the space-time Nexus Singularity Stone, they still knew that after gaining control of a world, they could seal it away. After all, when the world of Sanctuary was first created, similar methods were used to escape from the sight of angels and demons and to develop freely. That's not something that can be accomplished by simply the ancient Nephilim were able to fight, so they scared the angels and demons away from them. Seeing that Kalia asked him to break the barrier, Luge smiled helplessly and finally jumped off the giant Andariel. Lugger turned around and rubbed the big guy twice with some unfinished thoughts. Lugger was quite emotional. Feeling that he still had many weapons to use, the battle was over. However, he still took the initiative to take back his hand and take the big guy back to the logistics space before Sarah turned so red that she reached out to knock him away while rubbing her front body. He turned to look at the crowd and explained to them. In fact, there is nothing to explain. Ruger had already completed tasks such as defeating the boss, the poisonous Andariel, and using her body to start the teleportation ceremony on the altar. In addition, the system merged this part of the authority and added 2 new areas to his space. One of them is a portal to leave this world. The other is a door leading to an unknown area. Both doors cannot be opened because Mephisto is still messing with this world. When Mephisto chose to escape, the 2 areas in Ruger's space were immediately unlocked. Needless to say, the first portal is the area with the second locked door. In fact, behind the door is this world. In other words, it is a special area that accommodates this fragmented world. Mephisto, the shrewd guy, probably sensed that the Seraph of the Supreme Heaven was approaching, so he found a chance to escape. By the way, Ruger and the other 2 were left alone to face the angel army. It can be said that he killed 2 birds with 1 stone, and he was very cunning. Unfortunately, despite all his calculations, he did not expect that Ruger could take this area back to his own space. After the entire rogue camp was taken into the logistics space, the corresponding misty forest on the lost planet was left with only fog and forest. Even if the Angel Legion had mastered the ability to cross the misty forest and enter the original rogue camp, they could no longer enter this world in Ruger's logistics space. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 479. However, Ruger was not completely risk-free. He was now equivalent to entering his own logistics space. When he left this small world and left the logistics space, he still entered the misty forest. His plane beacon or something else that locates in the plane world, the location point is still on the lost planet. He just packed up the area of the rogue camp and stuffed it into his pocket. The final battle was finally over. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. It felt a bit anticlimactic. Fortunately, Ruger not only won a great victory, but also gained a small world. The Nephilim, the ghost, and even the monsters in this small world naturally became his subjects. After the battle, the Ghost Army arrived late. Also coming was the Rogue Army in the Rogue Camp, plus the remaining monsters in the East Gate Fortress. The three forces gathered together, just surrounding Ruger and others in the center. It seemed that another war was about to start. However, let alone the ghosts, even those monsters stood in their own ranks in a uniform manner under the control of the high-level leaders. The three forces were actually arranged in front of Ruger as if they were accepting a leader's inspection. The commanders stepped forward to salute and said, "My lord, I am late to rescue you, I deserve to die, come to receive the punishment." "No, no, no." In front of the campfire, Giulia waved her hand to interrupt Anya's storytelling, and said to the naive children including Seongda Seong-er, "Those guys don't speak so elegantly, just come to see their monarch." "Oh, that's about it, why are you so serious?" Anya pouted and continued to tell the children. On the other side, in the tent of the commander of the Rogue military camp, Rugshia Sarah was still summing up the gains this time. The system determined that the entire Rogue town area had become Ruger's asset. Next, it was time to consider the division of power and the respective development routes. Humans, that is, Rogue Town and the Second Sanctuary, were still the core of development. The Paladin cult had been uprooted by the Ghost Army before. But with Sarah's strict order, the ghosts did not harm anyone else in Rogue Town. This not only preserved most of Rogue Town's strength, but also greatly changed the attitude of human Nephilim towards ghosts. The most core technical lines of ghosts, lost weapons, namely gunpowder guns, lasers, ultrasound, and other technological weapons, as well as bio-enhancing transformation technology. Both of these technical lines can be used by humans who cannot awaken into Nephilim. So the three of them simply waved their hands and grouped Rogue Town, the Second Sanctuary and the Ghost Dungeon together for unified management. The core of Rogue Town is still Nephilim training. The Second Sanctuary turned to attack lost weapons. The Ghost Dungeon is responsible for the auxiliary type development of biochemical transformation technology. For example, a human soldier who cannot awaken to become a Nephilim can be equipped with auxiliary weapons such as a ghost drone and a ghost self-propelled gun. In this way, even if an ordinary human has no awakening potential, his single combat power is no lower than that of a Nephilim below level 30. With the development of biochemical transformation technology, the biochemical reproductive equipment that can be used by ordinary humans will become stronger and stronger. One day in the future, it is possible to reach the level of Iron Man armor. Humans and ghosts can coexist, but the feeling towards monsters is much worse. Even though monsters nowadays will no longer attack humans for no reason, the residents of Rogue are still wary of them. Just like Anya, who is telling stories to children by the campfire over there, said that when the leaders of the three factions bowed to Ruger and the other two, the rogues still almost fought with the monsters. Although, among the three factions, the monsters are the strongest. After all, the location at that time was the East Gate Fortress, near the cathedral. It is the core of the monster nest in this area and the place with the strongest magic power. If it weren't for Ruger and the others, I'm afraid that even if all the Nephilim in Rogue Town were added together, plus all the ghosts, well, excluding the Iron Man commanders, they would still be unable to defeat the monsters. However, they didn't lose the battle, and they still fought hard against the monsters. This made it difficult for Sarah. To be honest, the actual top leaders of the three factions here are actually her. Among the Nephilim in Rogue Town, Sarah is the highest commander of the rogue troops, and also the highest ranking person in the Blind Eye Sisterhood, and the undisputed top master. As long as Rugshia doesn't compete with her. In the Ghost Dungeon, Sarah is the new Pope of Ghost, directly controlling 7 Iron Man commanders. Although there are another 4, air signs Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, who followed Ruger, the last one, Scorpio Irina, also tends to follow him. Finally, the monsters here are theoretically all subordinates of the Queen of Pain Andariel. Although Sarah successfully transformed into the goddess of joy and honesty, Andariel's memory is still there, and she can still control them. Okay, there is actually a problem here. In fact, the line that the monsters are loyal to is Andariel, but it is actually Andariel of Lugger. Oh, it seems that Sarah is also Andariel of Lugger. It's the other one, Giant Andariel. It's really confusing. Sarah Kerrigan is the reincarnation of Andariel's soul, and has transformed most of the Queen of Pain's demon essence into the divinity of the goddess of joy. The last remaining source of the painful demon king is in the giant Andariel's body. Now Lugger treats her as a high-end vehicle. In fact, he is the direct loyalist of those monsters. However, there is another thing here. Andariel was originally Diablo's wife, or to put it in a more demonic style, she is his mistress. So in fact, the monsters under Andariel will also obey Diablo's orders. There is no such thing as my vassal's vassal is not my vassal in hell. The monsters listen to Andariel, and Andariel listens to Diablo, so the monsters will naturally listen to Diablo. Diablo is now Diablo. The monsters will naturally be controlled by her. So in fact, the three factions in this area actually listen to Sarah half and Tia half. Of course, since both women listen to someone, they are all his in the end. Since they are all his, and the three forces have such a close conflict, he must find a way. So, Sarah, since these monsters were originally your subordinates, and you have now turned from monsters into gods, why not just turn them into your servants? Servants of God. Yes, those divine beasts, fairies, flower fairies, etc., or simply heroic spirits, angels, etc. Oh, subordinates of God. Yes. I'll try. So, the goddess behind Sarah reappeared. She stretched out her delicate jade hand and waved at the monsters behind her, and a tide of light like a divine light veil washed over. Looking at those monsters again, they really changed. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 480. Monsters like the fallen demons turned into dwarves, and goblins. Skeletons, zombies, and vampires turned into tree monsters and vine guards. Ghosts turned into fairies and fairies, giant spiders turned into unicorns, and pollution monsters turned into griffins. And so on. A group of monsters in the burning hell instantly turned into elves and natural magical creatures in a certain Invincible series. Sarah, have you been playing games secretly again? Why do these guys look so familiar? Google searched Furtkin. Tia was the first to react and complained. It's fine as long as they look good, why do you care if they look familiar or not? Sarah pouted. That's right. Seeing that these monsters have become brighter and friendlier, the human side's vigilance against them has been visibly eliminated. Humans are visual animals after all, and they look at faces. I thought the matter had been perfectly resolved, but Ruger turned around and found that Tia was not in a good mood. After thinking about it, Ruger understood. Sarah successfully completed the transformation into a demon god, but Tia accepted her identity as Diablo under Ruger's guidance. In other words, she is still a demon king, yes, still a demon god, one of the three giants of burning hell. Seeing that the monsters were not accepted by humans because of their poor appearance, how could she not feel strange when they were treated much better after changing their skins? After thinking about it, Ruger simply leaned close to her ear and said, "These monsters are also your subordinates. You can also keep some of the hell-type images for them." Okay, yes, change them a little. As long as they are not the ones that fought with Rogue Town. If humans are not exposed to other images, they will not be able to naturally change to not judge people by appearance. This kind of thing requires training. Keep some monsters, but change the appearance. Tia nodded thoughtfully, without even having to hold up the goddess phantom like Sarah, just transforming her arms into dragon arms, and then releasing the transformation magic to a group of monsters behind her. As a result, part of the natural elves of the fortress turned into monsters in the main city of Hell. Little demons, Gog, fire-throwing monsters, hellhounds, evil spirits, evil gods, nightmares, fire monsters, succubi and demons, etc. Tisk, you're still talking about me, you've played this game a lot, Sarah pouted and teased. You're still playing the same game with me, let's play together next time, let's fight for 300 rounds. Ha, are you afraid of you? 300 rounds. Let's fight for 800 rounds. No matter how the two internet-addicted girls make an appointment to fight, in short, the emotional entanglement left by the three factions due to their past hostile history has come to an end. Humans can coexist with ghosts, and of course they can also coexist with natural elves. Although they still naturally dislike the monsters of hell, these monsters of hell are different from demons. They have not participated in the massacre of humans, and humans will not have the same irreconcilable emotions with them. As for the essence of things, whether it is a hell demon or a hell monster, they are all newborns bred by the magic power of this world under the radiation of the devil's origin. As individuals, they have never killed anyone. Those monsters that actively attacked humans have long been cleared out by Ruger and others. Therefore, as long as their appearance does not make humans think that they are the executioners who killed their compatriots before, they can actually live well with these hell monsters. In Ruger's words, this is a kind of training. In the end, this integrated area was named Rogue City by Ruger. There is a main city and two sub-cities here. The main city is the integration of the original Rogue Town, the second shelter, and the Enchanted Dungeon. Since the entire place has been moved to Ruger's logistics space, it is feasible to make some adjustments to the details of the terrain. Moreover, the three places are not far apart, and they are faintly in the shape of a Chinese character. After the adjustment, the three places are connected as one, and it is easier to communicate with each other. Then, in the dark forest and dark wasteland area near the Forgotten Tower, there is a city built by Tia's hell monsters. The name is also simple, a dark tower can do it. The original East Gate Fortress was completely demolished. Anyway, there is only the Tamo Mountains to its east, and further east, it is the end of this world. So this place does not need a military fortress at all. Of course, one of the important reasons is that the original buildings were bombed down by the ROG. After this area was demolished, it became an area where natural elves live, and the name is still Tamo Highlands. 1 main, 2 secondary, and 3 cities just put most of the area of this small world under control. There will be no more monsters that will attack humans in the wild. The once dense and heavy clouds also disappeared in the sky at this time. Although the sun in the sky is not real, but a fake simulated by the system, the sunlight shining on the ground is real and carries energy. For this reason, Ruger is actually paying points every moment. Fortunately, this part of the consumption is nothing to him now. Just selling the daily output of Rogue City to the system store can earn several times the points consumed. With sunlight and no monsters, this place can be used for farming. The magic of the natural elves on the Tamo Plateau is suitable for this purpose. The natural resources in this area can be developed to provide for the reproduction of various races. However, if this continues, it won't be long before the resources in this small kingdom will be insufficient. Fortunately, this soon is said from the perspective of the two demons Tia and Sarah. In fact, it will take at least a few hundred years. The affairs of Rogue City have been sorted out with the collective efforts of everyone. Its daily management work was naturally handed over to Sarah Kerrigan, the former Supreme Commander of the Rogue Force, who has the most comprehensive management skill tree among the core three. As for the other two, they wanted to go out and take a look. At this time, 3 days had passed since the final battle, and Ruger also wanted to know what the misty forest looked like after the rogue camp area was gone. And whether the Seraph Legion outside was still there. Their purpose was to exterminate this rogue camp area or the entire lost planet. Originally, he just wanted to go out with Tia, but was strongly opposed by Anya. "I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Wherever you go, I will go too. Don't think of leaving me behind." Faced with his granddaughter rolling on the ground, Ruger had no choice but to agree. But Anya was allowed to go, and Li Min, who had a closer relationship with Anya, followed suit. When Ruger saw the situation, he knew that he couldn't stop these guys anyway, so he simply took all 4 Iron Man of the air sign with him.